Hey there, hi there, ho there, welcome back to one more rodeo. Let's do this. Unit 14, deserts. Save the best for last because it's where we are. So let's jump into this, shall we? So what is a desert? Obviously we live in one, but what is the definition of a desert? It's an arid land, dry land, that receives less than 25 centimeters, around 10 inches of precipitation in a year on average. All right. So if an area receives 10 inches of precipitation or less per year, it's defined as a desert. Sometimes here in Arizona we get a little bit more than that. Sometimes we get a lot less than that. But overall, with the average over a long period of time, we come up definitely below 10 inches a year. But again, that does change, and you'll see. When rainfall does occur in a desert, typically it's intense downpours during a very brief rainy season. Maybe that sounds familiar, kind of like the North American monsoon that we experience during the summertime. In the desert, water erosion is common in most deserts. So very slight weathering in the desert, but if stuff is moved around, typically by water, again, usually during that short rainy season. Approximately 25% of all of Earth is a desert. And in fact, the world's largest desert is Antarctica. Go figure. Now, desert, the definition of desert, as you see, doesn't have anything to do with hot. It has to do with just being dry. And Antarctica is actually very dry. It's known as a polar desert. So not all deserts are hot. So since I briefly touched on it, let me just speak on the North American monsoon. The reason I talk about it is because a number of people don't quite know what it is and what it actually means. So the word monsoon just refers to a seasonal change in the direction of prevailing or strongest winds in a region. So during a monsoon, the weather patterns change, the wind patterns change. That's all really a monsoon is. Now there's the North American monsoon. They have monsoons in Asia. So, this isn't the only one. But the North American monsoon is a pattern of pronounced increase in thunderstorms and rainfall over a large area of the southwestern United States, as well as a little bit of northwestern Mexico, typically between July and September. So, another thing, we living here in the desert, or in the Phoenix area, we're used to the North American monsoon. That only happens kind of in the southwest. Arizona, New Mexico, a little bit of California, northern Mexico. And that's it. That's the only place it exists in the United States. Other places get rain, and that's just rain. Because a rainstorm is not a monsoon. It's just called rain. So during monsoon, when people say, oh, the monsoon's coming. No. That's rain. Rain is rain. A thunderstorm is a thunderstorm. Rain is rain. Monsoon is just the name for the kind of time of year that we get a change in wind patterns. The wind comes from a little bit different direction. Usually it comes from the east, usually the wind comes from the west, blows west to east over Arizona. But during the North American monsoon, the wind patterns shift. More on that in the next slide. So don't call the rain the monsoon. No, rain is rain. Thunderstorm is a thunderstorm. The monsoon just refers to that change in wind patterns. Again, so monsoon, you're referring kind of to this season of changing wind patterns. As it turns out, for most desert ecosystems in the area, the North American monsoon is the primary water source. Most of our precipitation for plants, for nature, comes during this period from July to September. So what are these shifting weather patterns? So as weather and wind typically goes over the United States, it typically goes from west to east. If there's a rainstorm moving through California, it typically moves off to the east over a number of days. Excuse me. And this is how it occurs, again, from October through June. But in July, due to some complex factors, weather's a very complex thing, we get this high pressure system that kind of pushes itself north. And as it does, it has this clockwise air circulation around it. So what's typically happening October through June, you get air moving over California into Arizona. It's very dry. Any moisture that was in the air is lost in California on the way to Arizona. And so we typically have very dry air, so we don't usually get a lot of precipitation. But from July through September, again, this high pressure system kind of moves north, and around a high pressure system, wind patterns typically move clockwise. So now what you're getting is this wind pattern pulling warm, moist air from the Pacific Ocean and the Gulf of California, and then now bringing it up into Arizona. So in this case, the winds shift from the west over Arizona to the southwest. So the wind patterns come up from the southwest, very close to a moisture source, the Gulf of California, bringing with it that warm, moist air. So now we get that warm, moist air moving into Arizona from July through September, which is then causing an increase in rainstorms. Remember, the shift in the monsoon is just the shift in the wind patterns from more east to west to now coming from the south and looping up and back around. So the monsoon is just that shifting of weather patterns, shifting of wind patterns. Rain is just called rain. But when the weather pattern shifts, it brings with it increase in moisture, thus an increase in precipitation. That's how it works. Looking at annual rainfall, now this is down in Maricopa, but this is some good data. So this looks at every month of the year, averages since 2007, current month. So this data that I have is current up through April of 2022. The rest looks at what occurred in 2021. It also looks at a 12-month, the total 12-month rainfall, the average 12-month rainfall, actual rainfall in the last 12 months, and the difference between the average and the actual rainfall. So if we look at these totals, in general, pretty low through June, and then as soon as you get into July, August, and September, we get a bunch of precipitation in the form of rain. And we've seen that too in the past year or so. So early 2022, then going back into 2021, really little to nothing. And then as soon as we get into July, August, and September, a lot. And in fact, last year we actually got a ton of rain. We got typically almost 4.5 more inches than we normally do, almost in August, almost 3 inches more than we normally do in September. So all this extra rain really threw things off the past 12 months. So the last 12 months, we've had almost 16 inches of rain, and the average is just under 10 inches. That's what the definition of a desert is. And so, we're actually 6 inches above normal for the past year. So pretty interesting. But again, in a desert, typically we're defining it over a long-term average precipitation of 10 inches or less. And precipitation takes many forms: rain, snow, hail, etc. And remember, deserts can be either hot or cold. Precipitation is just falling water from the sky, so it could be rain or snow. Speaking of deserts, there's actually 5 types of deserts. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and pause here, and when we come back, we'll discuss those 5 different types of deserts. I'll see you back here in just a second.